Hey guys, back with another Echoing Thoughts podcast here, episode number 108. And in this video, we're going to talk about quickly the patch notes from July. This is only part one, guys. You guys know there's going to be a bigger update later in July with anniversary. This is sort of just kind of a teaser. Barely anything, a few things, events, just getting you prepped for hopefully what is a big and memorable anniversary patch. Talk about what I predict is going to happen and hope for. And then I want to really talk about this patch notes in general, about what is such an uh, surprising thing that Nexon has been doing recently with patches and with changes that they made previously that I think is super important. That is hopefully a step in the right direction as far as community, as far as being heard, as far as giving feedback on ways to improve the game. So you guys definitely want to stick around for that at the end. And then I wanted to break down and react to the first hard Verus Hilla clear. I think it was last week. So they've cleared it a while ago. They're talking about their gear, talk about what classes are doing really well in V Hilla right now, and sort of there's quite a few surprising classes that have really showed up and showed out, and some classes that usually did really well in content like Will and in uh, Archon that aren't performing as well as you'd expect. So excited to share and talk about that. But let's just jump into these patch notes right away. So right off the bat, fair trade penalty adjustment. This is pretty cool that they reverted this back. Sort of one of the things that one of the things that I've learned over the time in this game is that not everything is one to one to PC to KMSM, and fair trade is one of those things, right? And the fact that I started playing reboot again and I realized that all you needed was 100% crit rate. There's no such thing as crit res. There's no such thing as um, needing to be over 100% depending on the boss. That game was just 100% means 100% no matter what boss or content you're doing, even in training. And in this game, for some reason, fair trade was introduced and crit res was introduced for something that we had to take into account that was foreign to us, right? And so Nexon created fair trade with Necro, and it was one of those things that over time they started to remove the cap from crit rate, but 100% didn't necessarily mean 100%. It was very weird in certain bosses, but now and fair trade becomes such a big factor. But in the last patch, right, they added this 10% damage that was causing an uproar, right? They removed the 2500 HP ticks, but instead, if you did get hit, you automatically took 10% on top of the actual damage. And I didn't talk about this in a podcast, but I thought that it was an interesting change, kind of forcing players who really knew how to uh, survive mechanics and dodge mechanics to really benefit, right? Get an advantage, a slight advantage. But then the kind of the downside was that in certain content like Damien, where you were just getting random ticks by orbs, you would take extra damage. Lower tier players were having a much harder time surviving, right? Especially in something like Will or in Gloom, where things were hitting HP scaling or fixed damage on top. The 10% on top of it was very unexpected, and people would die, um, kind of in ways that it wasn't intended, right? If an attack was supposed to hit 80% and you're getting hit 80% on top of 10%, right? That throws things off. There's a lot less wiggle room. So what happened was people just couldn't use fair trade, right? They just took it off, which honestly I thought was okay. I thought it was okay. Um, but I think obviously the community hated it, right? And they were preaching about it in feedback, and clearly Nexon listened. And I think it's really cool that they've been doing this, and they wrote this little developer comment, right? They realized their mistakes. They listened to the player base that about our frustrations, and they actually revert back, which is, I mean, you can't ask for anything more. As much as you despise Nexon or complain about Nexon, you have to admit that this is growth. This is something cool, and this isn't the first time, right? They made the change to Richie when they made Richie 20 bill, and they immediately reverted that back the day after. this is it should be exciting for everybody, right? Not just because of the fair trade, but just in general that we're being heard and that your feedback is at least being um, recognized and there's action being applied. So I really appreciate Nexon for this. This is pretty cool. They wrote the developer notes, they reverted it back and actually made it better. They didn't even add in the 20 revert back to the 2500 ticks, just completely straight off the bat. Everything is just 100% crit rate and no downside, which I mean, even better. And I think there was something in here. Yeah, right there. Fair trade now remains active when moving between fields. So this is a sneaky one liner that even makes it even better, right? So, for example, we've had issues sometimes in some bosses where you have to reapply fair trade in between phases, right? Or if you're going from boss to boss, you keep having to reapply it. But now, as intended, you can just throw it on your pet and it's going to be there 100% crit rate. And you are not going to get any, you're not going to be, even if you're resting in in town for some reason, or you're AFK for a little bit, you're not going to be taking those tick damages and just eating at your pots, which is such a pain in the butt with the pet presets. When, for me, for example, when I would mess up my pet presets on and fair trade would still be applied, I would just be ticking away damage and eating HP pots for no reason, right? I'll be like at one HP for who knows how long because I'd run out of pots. So this is a cool little feature that they've added on. So overall, this is a huge win and probably the biggest takeaway from this patch altogether. And it's just like a few one-liners here that are so impactful for quality of life. I mean, you can train with this now. Like I have my Wind Archer that doesn't have a training weapon. I can just use fair trade during training and just kill more mobs, get more drops, get more mezzos, and not see any downside at all. And it's cool that I don't even think you need to have it on your pet anymore. You just press it and it's going to be there forever, right? So I think that's even cool for free to play players or people that don't have the like M pets or pet buffs, auto pet buffs. That this is going to be a huge improvement for quality of life and training and just overall gameplay. So I think obviously Necker weapons, absolute weapons is the meta, and even more so now. This is even more of a reason why that if there's anything that you want to go the Necker route, it has to be the weapon. Now, other than that, this patch was pretty bland, right? I mean, from first glance, this doesn't even look like anything, right? It's just a little write up. I'm sure most people just sped right through it and probably didn't even realize these little one-liners. I rip right through this. HP adjustments for daily bosses. Some single bosses HP will decrease by 56%. Absolutely huge. These are all for single targets, right? So I really like that. It just makes it easier for kind of solo players to get their clears quicker. And even for alts maybe. Alts may be nice. Sneak up on you. Guild scramble improvements as well. I honestly didn't look too much into this. So, but I know that they're just improving these buffs with the intent of making it even more important to do these mini games. So do that mini room and prioritizing that as a team to get this biggest bang for your buck, right? For damage, right? 2x damage compared to before. Golem defense by 50% versus 30 before. 50% versus 30. Points obtained from winning the scramble will be removed starting from next season. Okay. Max damage when you win the scramble 3 times in a row, you're gonna get 15 mil cap versus 10. So these are all, the intention is just to make it more to make low teams that focus on this and don't just brute force it to actually see some sort of impact from it, to actually have a chance to beat these stronger guilds that have that kind of ignore mechanics or kind of just brute force it, right? But time will tell. But I'm excited to see how this translates to wins and losses. I know that our guild still kind of is working on this, so maybe it'll incentivize us even more to focus on the mini room, winning that, so that we can get all these extra bonuses and take advantage of it and win more battles, scrambles. Guild attributes. Previous, you had to max the level before, so now it has to be level 1. All has to be levels 1 to move to the next one. So we'll take that. right? That's much easier. So like you don't even have to focus on these things. You can just go right away to the last tier once you level to level 1, which is a nice bonus. Just allows guilds to pick and choose, especially like lower funded guilds or alt guilds or just free to play guilds. They can kind of focus on the meat and potatoes here of what they want to do, what they want to focus on, and use their resources for. So that's a cool change right there. And then expedition quality of life, I like this too. Just challenge again. Now I know people wanted sort of use all 4 tickets at once. This seems fine to me. Retry, right? Automatically gets you in there. Goes by a lot faster. Okay, advanced training ground. Geez, this is a huge gain. So this is gonna be super fast for new players. I think it makes me feel like this patch was sort of for prepping new players that are coming back into the game kind of for anniversary, sort of to how like I started in reboot, starting up for this anniversary. It's enticing these new players to catch up real quick, right? Get their legion up, get their ults up, and spend more time and spend less time um, doing all these um, time consuming things that most of the player base has already done over time, over months and months and years, and they can just catch up a lot quicker and do this. So just imagine how many ults you can actually get to 100 in one day, in a few hours even, just with this gain. So returning players, this is huge for you guys, and excited for anyone that's coming back to catch up their legion, catch up their ults, and get stronger overall. And this new item right here, Mezzo reward cards, just gives you options, right? I think I really like this because it discount for anything. Forge, hyperstats, arcane symbols, you name it, right? I think one of the biggest issues was that they were giving out things that just kind of sit in your inventory, and this just allows for flexibility. Just allows you, it's just like red mezzos on top. It's just on top of red mezzos, right? I really like this, and it's cool that it shows you how much you have left, and it's sort of like a little gift card debit, a preloaded debit card type of thing. So pretty cool. And then after that, just the events. Nothing crazy here. Always want to do your auto battle here. You always want to just do your events. Free gain just from playing, doing dailies. You can use Mezzo? What is this? For the duration of the combat session, you can pay Mezzos to claim the rewards you didn't earn for reaching the required stage. Oh, okay. You still have to pay to unlock it, but then you can use Mezzos to actually just get it. Okay, cool. Instead of crystals or whatever, that's nice. Event rewards. Result fail. Oh, this is the coin plus pass. Okay, so this is the pay to win shop. A nice little mount. That thing is going to be huge, I feel like. And then free buffs. Always take advantage of this. Make sure you're getting your auto battle in. Check in 2 hours auto battle and just use it. This is a lot of free stats and buffs overall, right? Party XP at 5% is huge. Like you can get this immediately today, right? Just from one day. And so just you'll eventually get all of these obviously, but these are very impactful and nice little passive buffs that you can get for all your characters on your account. So we love to see that. Wish there was an ignore me defense one here, but beggars can't be choosers. And then the event here, pretty straightforward, pretty easy. All it takes is one time to really get 700 coins, which is nice. And this is the event shop. So I'll talk about it later on, maybe in another video, or maybe later in this video about what I plan to use my event coin shops on, and we'll see what is really good and what is kind of helpful for you in your situation. Daily login. So this is all for returning players, right? Like I mentioned before, the adventure training ground is to benefit newer players or people that are sort of behind in alts and legions. They've really had a lot of events here, new things for just players returning. So it seems like they're expecting players to come back, and they're trying to help them catch up as much as they can, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. Returning war mission again. It's only available for accounts that are returning after this update, basically. So they kind of have a gauge on if you're considered a returning player or not. And they give you a lot of free kind of just stuff just from doing certain things. So that's pretty cool, right? It's a nice little, as someone that is new, like starting a new game and reboot, I really appreciate this more. And I usually just pass this by on my main and stuff. But now that I kind of have a different perspective, I really appreciate these things just to help get accustomed to the game and getting um, up to date, caught up a little bit quicker than normal. Items have added to the Royal Point shop. The dragon, that was pretty cool. The damage skin, and then packages. So as you can see, a very short patch notes. Again, there's going to be a lot more coming out in this next patch notes in July, right? Anniversary. So be prepared for that, and I'll talk about that. What I expect to come out next, and what I'm excited for and hoping for at the in the big July update. All right, so we're back, and we just wanted to look at what to expect for anniversary. And I think the best way to do it is to look back at last year, right? So this is 2024. And so this year is very different, right? Because in the past years, we've had our V skills come up, and this was in June. So we had in June a big two-parter, and this was end of June, right? June 26th. So they had all these little events, all these little patches. So in May, they had one here, and then they had another one at end of May. And then in June, they pushed it back to the end of June. And then obviously anniversary happened in July, right? So this is kind of a unique year as far as that, because my expectation personally is that we are not getting six job. That's just me. That's just what I believe based on of mainly based off of KMSM and how far behind we are in a sense of six job and bosses that still need to come out and new classes that still need to come out. And also just the fact that not a lot of the player base is even going to be able to take advantage of sixth job if it were to come out in anniversary, right? So in KMSM, sixth job is level 260. Now that's not going to be that's not going to happen, right? No, I don't think anyone is level 260 in this game right now. So I think that our game, when it comes and releases, sixth job is going to be 250. Okay, which is, if you think about it, still really hard to get to. Okay, um, my arrow, for example, that was grinding up to from the beginning of the year when it got released to 250, it would be at 249, about 250 right now. Okay, so it would take 6 months just to get there, full on grinding at the peak max gear, max PXP parties, auto battle, all these things, permas. 6 months, okay, at the current EXP curve, and I just don't believe that there's just enough player bases that would of the player base that would get to 260 and take advantage of it. So that's why I think that it's not coming in anniversary, but instead, what I'm expecting is what they always do in anniversaries is a new class. Okay, so last year in 20 was Hayato. I think the year before that was, let's see, was Kana. Okay, so my prediction, there's really only two options. It's either Mihail or Kane, and my guess is that it's Mihail. But they also had some sort of sneaky like mention of Kane previously. But Mihail got some. They had some Cygnus Knights. I don't know if the Cygnus Knights, but they had some sort of style package for Mihail come out recently that just makes me believe that it's gonna be that class. But Kane is well overdue. We thought Kane was gonna come last anniversary. Hasn't come yet. Um, and so we'll see. My prediction is Mihail, but let me know what you guys think is going to come, which class, if you agree, or you think it's going to be Kane or something else, really. But let's look back at what happened last anniversary, because I think this is super important and something that they've been doing for a while. Okay, so house update, maybe, right? But there's always I wouldn't expect a house update. Update, but I would expect a big anniversary sort of store, a lot of events, a lot of coins, and an insane shop that people are going to want to take advantage of just by playing the game, right? Just by doing dailies, right? So this is last year's again. They had store passes, they had all these types of events, They had insane event rewards. They had the M shop, of course. And dang, this is a throwback for sure. Dang. But the main thing is that they always have a really good event shop. Okay. So they always have like multiple options and layers of event shop. So last year, it's actually pretty funny to see what last year's event shop was. And in comparison to now, right? So like they had things like 100% exalt fail scrolls, 100% change scrolls. This is most likely going to be here again, I assume, because those are still very valuable. I wonder if they're going to have some sort of like radiant stone options. I doubt chaos stones, but radiant stones would be really cool, or some sort of 100% exalt stone on top of these 100%. Anything 100% is a win. That's almost like a must have, right? And then of course they always have these style packages. I'm sure whatever class comes out, like these are whatever class comes out, they're going to usually have some sort of style package, damage skim related to it. And then it's always good shops. Okay, mega burning obviously for the new class that comes out. So definitely want to take advantage of that to get it to level 200. And here's the style awards that they've had. Usually this is, I don't think this Hayato one was able to be, it was only equipped by Hayatos too. So it wasn't really that big of a, it was more just for the Hayato, and it wasn't, you couldn't transfer it over to any other characters to equip. But yeah, this is sort of something similar, right? It's now one thing that I'm hoping comes out from it, like I mentioned before, in the past we've had June updates that were really big, right? Fort job skill plus job rebalance. So in June, it was a huge just throw everything at it. It was like this was a three-parter in end of June. Rebalance and V4. Now I'm hoping now that I doubt there's gonna be a fifth job coming out. I hope that there's a new rebalance coming, right? So in the current meta, right, their max damage cap is going to be at the highest level pretty soon. Right now, it's in the 220s, 230 mils. Pretty soon, people are going to be hitting with arcane force sets. They're going to be hitting close to 300 mil cap, which is just insane. Going from what I'm at now at 155 at full 60s, what at 4 set 70 arcane, they're going to be almost doubling my max damage cap. And just, I mean, just imagine one piece of armor is going to be 43 mil max damage cap, probably more cap than, it's almost as much as my arrow. It's going to be more than one piece of armor is going to be more cap in general than just any, majority of the player base out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of, I'm hoping for a rebalance of some sort, right? Whether it's lines, whether it's percent stats, whether it's both, that would be really cool. I know people have seen KMSM and talk about kind of big nerfs and balances, or nerfs and buffs. Like, for example, Paladin Sacral just got nerfed in KMSM. You got to wait and see, right? Again, these are kind of different games. We've always operated at a different level, and we have implemented a lot of KMSM rebalance and changes, but we also have, it's usually taken a little bit longer for us to implement it here. So I'm very curious to see what they decide to do with the rebalance, but I'm hoping and praying that that is what they plan to do. On top of just, my prediction is that they do some sort of Lynx Legion, some sort of potential update as well, right? With the increased max damage cap that's coming, maybe they'll just give us a base max damage cap increase as well for everybody to benefit from. But it just feels like stats with the new max damage cap, stats are going to be falling a little bit behind again. And it would be cool if they just gave us more potential or more stats from buffs. It'd be cool if emblems maybe even got better. Level 5's emblem just gave a little bit more stats overall. That would be sweet, but that's just me rambling. Honestly, I have no insight, no idea. That's just my prediction and hope, and kind of just based off of what they've done in the past. That I feel like if they throw everything into this anniversary, it's going to be huge for the new class, and it's also going to have something that benefits the entire player base with some sort of rebalance or base max damage cap increase in general. But I'm curious what you guys think, what you guys are hoping for, if you even think sixth job is coming, or what you think the new class is going to be, what you hope for rebalance wise. But there's just, it's exciting, right? It's an exciting time of the year, and hopefully that anniversary really, really is the cherry on top of this summer. All right, so now I want to talk about the event shop and what to expect and what I hope, what I recommend as far as what you should get. Now, this always depends on what your level is at, what you need. Obviously, there's the fashion stuff that is coming out that, you know, to each their own, right? It doesn't hurt to collect all these things. And a chair, it's a pretty cool chair. Ooh, the pets are nice actually. I didn't even realize that. I don't think they've done this that often where they're giving 30-day pets, but you know, if you're a free to play or if you're lower lower tier, you don't have M pets or you don't have permanent pets, I think pets are a great investment, especially because they are 30 days, 3,000 coins. Like you can accumulate that pretty quickly. And it just allows you to get your buffs. It allows you to just farm better, to do more damage, and it's just a good quality of life thing to have. And it obviously gives free stats too. So I think for one, if you need pets, this is a good investment right here. 30 days, pretty much takes 1 day to farm these coins, maybe 2 days, and you're set, right? You're set for the entire month. Ooh. Then we'll go just down the list, right? Bonus potential scrolls. This is sort of a last priority for me personally, because you can always use Kerning Tower. You can get 2 here. You can always use Legion if you have it here. And then Path of Proof as well will give you some. Right? So there's just a lot of different ways to get bonus potential cubes. And the thing is, even if you were to hit this, right? Even if you were to hit this at 20%, it's going to be a rare. 90% chance it's going to be rare. And those stats really aren't that beneficial. And it's challenging for a lot of player base to rank this up. Because the only way you can rank these up to unique and legendary to actually get the stats that you want, you're going to have to use crystals. Right? This is the only way to get cubes. So it's really just it's not that, I would say it's okay, but there's just other routes and other things, other ways to get it, and also other things in the shop that I think are higher priority, that will give you more bang for your buck. And if you do need the bonus potentials, it's probably more of like an end of the event type of situation where you just have leftover coins, right? So because Path of Proof, like I mentioned, you can get bonus potentials scrolls here. There's another one. Yeah, so you get a 10 and 20%. This is gonna expire in 3 days, so you're gonna get a whole new reset. So I wouldn't really prioritize bonus potentials that much, unless it's like you're really itching. You're really itching, and you're really itching. So, sorry, I'm just trying to do dailies while I'm here. So, I think the next thing that I would do is, I'm a big cube guy. But again, these are like, if you're not huge priority. Like if you have a legendary that you want to just grow for 2 lines, legendary potential, get rolling for 2 lines, or you have cubes, extra coins that you want to use. This is always like end of the event type of what you can use your excess coins on, right? They're very cheap and affordable, and you can get a lot. 30 here and 5 here. Flames, 10 this time. That's actually a lot. If you're struggling to get flames, like if you need to improve your flames, like you have 2 lines legendary that you think you can get better, I definitely think flames are a good value for those people that are free to play, especially. And then I'm actually kind of a sneaky big fan of these. Like, star forcing is such a pain nowadays. I think that if you have the coins and you're like high star force here, I think this is pretty worth it. 50%. Definitely some of these lower ones too. Just are nice, but again, like I would start with using these scrolls here and using your 10%. I would buy out these first. You get 10 of these shields, 10 of these scrolls. Like I would buy out these for sure. And then what I would do is I would probably stack on using my Kerning Tower lucky scrolls. I would stack on my Rudibus lucky scrolls as well that you can get monthly, and just use these first, right? Rudibus, Kerning Tower for these lucky scrolls. And then just use these kind of as excess, right? You can even use lucky scrolls. You can even buy these scrolls from Kerning Tower, Rudibus. So always try to prioritize. If you're doing your Rudibus dailies, you're doing your Kerning Tower monthly, always try to use these first, in my opinion. Because these coins, there's a lot of good stuff in here. Like if you need an emblem, you can get an emblem. I wouldn't really recommend emblems that much. 15% is kind of is rough at this moment. I think you can find emblems at a decent price in TradeStation now. And unfortunately, even if you hit this emblem, there's still a 1 in 5 chance, you know, you're not going to get a good, I mean, it's still RNG to get the right emblem. So there's just layers of RNG in there. But I've definitely used emblem scrolls before, but I think there's other things that are better. At the higher level, for sure, if you're starting to exalt and radiant exalt, this exalt fail scroll is always good. 50% for this. If you're low on mezzos and you're trying to get like your weapon, I would only really use this if my weapon wasn't level 40. Okay. And if for some reason like you have an ancient that's below level 40, I would use this. But for the most part, fodders, mythic fodders are very cheap right now, and especially for armors, I wouldn't recommend. I would prefer probably using mezzos, using fodders, and using 4,000 defense stones, right? Now, if you're lower tiered, this is my best bet, right? Especially if you're struggling, like if your weapon needs to get to Necro, I would be throwing these out. This is a must-have. Trust me, 3%. You can stack it multiple times too. I think you can stack all of these too. I know 2 minimum, but I think you can probably stack all 3 of these now, which, I mean, we'll take that, right? For a Necro attempt, these are pretty good value too, I think. 2,000 coins for 30, so 60 for 4,000 coins. Another attempt. I think if you are in that phase where you do need a Necro, or you're looking for an upgraded piece of armor, or even if you're like, you know, just trying to make tradable items, projects, right? This is, I really am growing. Lucky Angel Scrolls have grown on me since you can stack them up. Like a pass is a pass, and any extra percent is huge. Now, for all people that don't have their V skills maxed, experience nodes are honestly number 1. This is where all your damage is going to come from. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Sorry. And so you definitely want to max this out. Five of these, 1,500, 7,500 coins. Yeah, that's because this is 100% RNG gains, right? They're not 30% exalt reductions. They're not, you know, an emblem that's 15% just a hit. They're not Star Force. They're not Lucky Scrolls. It's guarantee, and you can place it where you want to. So I think your experience nodes are always a great option. Even like my arrow, or even like people that are doing end game bossing, experience nodes are still valuable to have and are definitely a good bang for your buck. Now symbols, I wouldn't really recommend it. Nodes, if you need nodes, you need nodes. In TradeStation, check your TradeStation though. It's pretty cheap to get nodes. But again, there's no other way to get nodes besides, like there's no shops besides this that give nodes. So it's definitely a good value if you don't want to use mezzo resources to buy nodes. If you're trying to use your mezzos for something else. Symbols, leftover. If you have leftover, right, you're trying to get to the next rank up, definitely do this. But this is, I mean, just doing your dailies is plenty enough. There's other things you can use. 50. I mean, this is not bad. Forge mezzo boost. So just be aware of which one is which, right? So this is for hypostats and arcane symbols. This is for anything. Exalts, refinements, accessories. So whatever you need it for, just think of this as free mezzos on top of red mezzos. So 100 mil for two, 100 mil for 2400, 100 mil for 2400. So I think that's good value, right? Good value. We'll take it where you can get. And everything else now in this shop is, in my opinion, just whatever your heart desires. Fashion story, sure. If you're into if you're into monster collection, do this. If you need a soul, use this, right? Auto battle, not bad. These are all just like, these are leftover. These are sort of the, you know, the appetizers, the sort of like the snacks. The main meat and potatoes, and I think, is experience nodes for one. If you need these lucky scrolls, I would bang these out for sure. And then I'm a big fan of the exalt reduction. Even if it's 30%, you hit this, it is huge for the end game players. Normal exalts, depending on your situation, if you need the weapon, or if you have something that just needs to get to level 40, it is very nice. And then I'm always a big fan, just because I have so many coins left over, I just use these. You buy these lucky scrolls especially. And then I if I need it, star forcing as well. Because like, for example, for me, when I use my lucky scrolls, I'm using it on my bossing gear, right? Like really, really high level, like Star Force 30 plus. And so these are nice for like my training gear. My training gear that needs more Star Force, needs more party XP, so that, you know, since I don't use my actual scrolls and Star Force scrolls and lucky scrolls on training that much. It's just not a big priority for me. So it's kind of getting two birds with one stone and sort of upgrading side quest per se, for me. So I'm curious what you guys think. I think everyone sort of has their different opinions and favorites. And like, my Paladin event shop is gonna be different than my Demon Slayer, different than my Arrow, different than my Wind Archer. So it's always depends on what you're at and what you need. But I hope this helps you guys decide on what you think is best for you. But I think that, um, if you're unsure, always wait to the end of the event, right? Because, for example, if you're buying this now, right here at the start of the event, who knows what you're going to need at the end of the month, right? Maybe you don't even need to use this. Maybe you found fodders, or you hit other things, and now you need to use your resources, or maybe you brick something, you need to use this exalt fail scroll instead, or you hit your necro without even needing lucky scrolls, right? So I always recommend, if you can stock up and store, it's always best to use it at the end of the event, so that you're like, you know, your progress could be different, your needs could be different, and it's just nice to have the options at the very, very end. All right, we got the first hard Verus Hilla clear video from the Shadower. This team, based on my understanding, is absolutely decked out. I think what I've heard is they had 5 players on this team with arcane 2-set arcane 70. So pretty much 5 people with over 200 mil plus cap. So their DPS was insane. And just watch how much damage they're going to do. So with our one practice run, or few practice runs that we've done, hard mode has about 7 point, I don't know, 7. The average team is, yeah, 7 trillion, 70 trillion maybe. 70 trillion damage or HP compared to normal, which is 55 trillion or whatever it is. It's 5.5 to 7.2 or something. So it's a big jump up, which was more than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like hard Damien, where the HPs are the same, but just everything hits a little harder. Attacks are a little quicker. There's less delays, and there's just more mechanics to it. But in this video kind of showcase how much damage. Look at this. In the first minute, first 75 seconds, almost their entire team is above 1 trillion damage already, and the top DPS is already at almost 2 trillion. So they are absolutely cranking here. And one of the things that I want to point out here is who the aggro is. That number that aggro right there is a phantom. You can see the by the way he's doing um, melee, and he's just attacking and moving. Just a great aggro altogether. And this team was actually locked in. They played super well. They ignored all mechanics and just dodged red threads. They didn't even use the altars or anything. And they had a lot of things that they did extremely, extremely well that you can take away from it and really respect, because I think people just assume that gear is trumps all. But in this boss, the skill, you need the skill and the gear more than ever. And because for one, no power elixirs, right? Two, no healing if they're going with this strategy. So every tick damage or everything that you're getting hit by really adds up in a long 10-minute fight. Like if they're getting hit by red threads, if they're getting hit by poisons or the necrotic on the ground, then it really shows. And you need 10 people to be locked in and do it and to know mechanics. And you also need a very, very good aggro. So the aggro here is really doing a great job of just keeping the boss in the corner and facing the corner for the most part. Now, obviously, not every time he's just going to be able to just tank it. He's going to have to move based on red threads here, based off of, rotations and what cooldowns he has. But you can see positioning, just like any other boss, is so impactful and really makes the boss so much easier when you have one stable aggro that knows what they're doing and can hold aggro the entire time, and the rest of the team can really just focus on doing their jobs and tunneling and staying to the left and dodging the red threads here. So it's pretty cool to see Phantom hold aggro when there's other equally geared players, like the Shadower, for example, which has insane burst, insane damage, consistent damage, and the Phantom is able to hold it this entire time. So very sneaky, underrated. And look at this, 4 minutes in, they're in a good spot, right on cue, playing amazingly. DPS is absolutely off the charts, as consistent as it gets. Look at that. They got 6 people within 11 to 12% damage, which is just shows how locked in these guys are gear wise, but also mechanically, right? And so now I want to talk about sort of what are some of the best classes that I've noticed that are thriving in Verus Hilla that is very unique, right? It's very surprising. Some classes. And so the first thing that you have to understand is that self healing and power elixirs classes kind of have a hard time here, right? Like people that rely on power elixirs have a hard time. For example, like paladins and their self heals, nightwalkers with their passive heals, they honestly don't really they don't get their added bonus survivability in this boss when you play the boss that they are doing it, right? When you're just avoiding altars and sort of just tunneling DPS. So that's one class. So like classes like that don't really shine as well, right? They can still put out damage, but it depends on the player and their mechanics. Second things, classes with place down skills, if done properly, like if the boss is still in this corner here, honestly, really thrive. When the boss isn't moving and dashing and diving and teleporting all over the place, the place down skills really hold true and can maximize their passive damage. So classes like, I don't know, cannoneers, corsairs, wild hunters, even nightwalkers, if they're able to use their omen in this corner, it really can maximize their damage. Now, another thing is attacking and moving, right? Wild hunters, wind archers, phantoms, all those classes that can just maximize or continue their rotation while dodging and moving really have an advantage, and just being able to up time is huge, right? So classes like something similar as like a paladin a or like a nightwalker that has a little bit of a delay to it, clunkiness, uh, can sometimes be caught in bad spots as far as dodging red threads and dodging mechanics while maintaining their DPS, right? But classes that can attack on the move, and dodge and jump around and do all these things while still attacking, honestly, have such a huge advantage. And another thing that I think, like classes like a wind archer, that is usually not known for its survivability that much because it doesn't have that much self healing, really thrive in Verus Hilla because of their one barrier. Their barrier skilled. It's a sort of get it just allows them to have extra HP it allows them that sort of um, be able to tank more damage. So all of these tick damages, all these little attacks that usually would chunk your HP, if you have your shields up, obviously, you are going to be able to be immune. You're going to be able to tank all that damage and have a lot of more wiggle room to maximize your DPS, a lot more wiggle room to survive and survive a lot of these mechanics. So I think Wind Archers are one of those classes that really shine here because of that one skill. Their barrier that is up 30 seconds on a 60-second cooldown. It does damage, but it's also just extra life and HP. And in a long fight like this, really is it's really hard to die as a Wind Archer and not maximize your damage. And to maximize your damage is very easy to maximize your damage and survive as a Wind Archer. But right here, man, the DPS is starting to pull away a little bit. This top DPS is doing 8 billion damage in 7.5 minutes. Absolutely insane damage. Just so cool to see. And I wanted to talk about lastly how I think the meta, just some classes doing better, like, and line count is really showing now in this boss. Okay, so classes like Paladins, for example, that are cream of the crop, arguably one of the best DPS classes in the game in certain bosses like Will and Hard Archon, and even Damien at times because of the short fights or the burst windows. But in these sort of fights where it's honestly 100% uptime, arguably, right? You're not really moving that much. You're dodging a little bit here and there, but it's it's not like burst for 30 seconds, DPS window, and just wait for mechanics like in Will, right? And then rinse and repeat, and then a test comes, and then your DPS is back up, your burst is back up. But other consistent damage dealing classes don't have time to catch, don't have time to get their lines in. So in our run, right, my Paladin actually had the best gear at the time during our runs, and I finished, I finished third, fourth. I wasn't aggro at all. Wild Hunter had better aggro, was able to keep more maintain uptime, and just did insane damage. But then Nightwalker beat me, Shade beat me, Phantom was beating me as well because of a few things. The clones add up, right? If you're hitting all cap lines and you're able to get all those cap lines out consistently, it will start to show in damage. And then also as your line counts, right, in a 2-minute fight, Paladins don't have the greatest 2-minute line count numbers compared to other classes. So those classes that actually have high line counts and are hitting full cap lines, say like for a Phantom, or I think like Hayatos are very good. Heroes are decent. DKs, while Wind Archers, things like that. Those classes, a lot of Thief classes as well, really showed out and showed up, and they can actually are starting to perform better than Paladins, while Paladins are um, actually more still very very strong because of Sacro, but are more of a upper middle tier versus being the top tier by kind of a wide margin. So it's very cool to see. Like I've seen a run where Akana was the aggro. I've seen a run where obviously Phantoms, Dual Blade, Shadowers. We had a Wild Hunter that was the aggro. I've seen a Blaster that was the aggro over a Demon Slayer. So it's cool to see that these classes that are underplayed, that maybe people thought were underperforming, are now honestly doing amazing things with the highest gear, even with equal gear or lesser gear, can outshine classes like Paladins, for example, that used to be what were thought to be the cream of the crop. So shout out to these guys. They played flawlessly. Oh my gosh, all 10 people survived here. Their damage was as consistent as it gets. They cleared in, what was their time? And even as well as they all played, they still had 20 seconds. Like it's still pretty sweaty, right? If one person died early, rerun, start over. Right? If someone didn't pull their weight here, aggro started jumping, it could have been a fail, right? So very, very impressive run. It's not just the gear, it's just that their skill and be able to maximize their damage and their output was honestly the most impressive part. And shout out to them, man. Shout out to them. And the fact that this Shadower ended up fourth on the DPS chart. I think it was a DB that was better, Phantom, and I don't know what this other person was, but very, very close in DPS and very, very impressive output by all these classes. And shout out to them. Pretty cool to see.